So after having ripped out my entire garden last season, I'm really happy to share with you guys today that the April garden is coming along really well. We have tons of new things growing in our raised beds. Seedlings are transplanted out, new seeds are germinating, and I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. Hey, and welcome back to Mini Urban Farm, a channel about urban gardening and homesteading in the suburbs. Today is time for the April garden tour, which I am really excited about because there are so many things growing in each of our raised beds, and even though right now there's nothing really like climbing all the way up the trellises as you can see here, I know that in a few short weeks there will be tons of stuff growing, and our tiny little tomato plants, they already have a few little flower buds on them, so I am really excited to show you guys. I will take you through every single one of our raised beds and our trellises and show you exactly what's growing in our garden, what's underneath the soil that has not sprung up yet, and also what we have transplanted out. Now, I do apologize in advance if you hear some sort of like bulldozer or something in the background. We live in suburbia and they are building a never-ending row of new houses here, so they are doing construction across the street. I cannot wait for that to be done because it is every single morning, as you can hear, but for the meantime we are stuck with it, so I apologize in advance. However, I will do my best to drown that noise out and show you all the pretty plants that are growing. Let's go. Alright, so this month I am going to do something different. I'm going to change it up, and I'm going to start at the back of the garden in my biggest raised bed. The garden kind of goes parallel here to the wall, right, and then along the side as well. This is the pathway, but right in front of me there is like the end of the garden. So that's like the end, and it kind of goes in like this U shape over here. My hands are not cooperating with that, but it kind of goes in a U shape, and I just walk right in the middle of it. So I'm going to start at that end and take you down each side individually. Okay, so in this box we have zucchini, we have yellow squash, zucchini again, and yellow squash again. Now you can see in here, let me just get a little bit closer, they're doing pretty well. They are quite green. You can see, I'm going to try to find one that has like some browning on it. That was because we have a lot of leaf miners in this area, so trying to get rid of them is such a pain, but as you can see everything else is pretty green. Here we go. So there is some leaf miner damage. I did come in here and spray some neem oil when it wasn't too hot outside, but trying to get rid of that has been one of the biggest challenges in this garden so far every season. And then the yellow squash over here as well, you can see some of this. Now, I am not sure exactly what this is. If anyone knows what this is, please leave it in the comments below. I have yet to find an answer for this. The leaves seem to be doing well despite whatever that like white stuff is. I'm not sure if that's disease or pest or whatever, but it is still growing tons of new little buds and some leaves, so let me know if you do know what that is. It is only the yellow squashes that have it. This one has it actually a lot more. I'm not sure if that's just the way it is. I've grown yellow squash in the past. I've never seen that. I'm not sure if that's like the leaf drying out or something, but let me know. The new leaves also seem to have it. So just let me know if you do know what that is. But we do actually have some flowers here on the zucchini. And we've actually had quite a few flowers so far. Okay, so then over here we have the Roma tomatoes. Now I do the Florida weave on my Roma tomatoes, which is what these stakes are. I have not yet done them. Oh, there's a giant spider web there. Ooh. All right, so let's try it again from this angle without the spider web. And as you can see, there's some string over there, which is like the Florida weave from last season. So I will be doing the Florida weave again. It's just a really great way to trellis them, and they don't fall off at all. So these are doing really well since I put them in. They have definitely grown at least 6 or 7 inches since I put them in. They seem to be doing really well. Not too much damage from leaf miners so far, which is really good on these tomatoes, because my other tomatoes do seem to have a lot of leaf miner damage. Now, one thing that I will say, when I'm mapping out the garden, I always try to separate things that are of the same family, the same species, things that share the same pests, right? Like here we get a lot of leaf miners. I don't really get aphids knock on wood, fingers crossed right now. I'm sure once I say that and publish this video, I am going to get tons of them. But we get mostly leaf miners. So normally if I know that things are prone to getting leaf miners, I try to space them out a little bit more. Now I know a lot of things get leaf miners, so it's not always realistic, but at least the tomatoes, which are the thing in my garden that get the most heavily affected by leaf miners. I put my tomatoes, some over here, and then some are on one side. Oh, and some are on this side, and then some are like over here somewhere. So I try to space them out, knowing that if something does get pest or disease, you know, you don't want it to spread to every other type of that plant that you have in your garden, and then all of a sudden, you know, one type of crop is just completely gone. So that's a good tip for any plant, really. You know, if you know that something is prone to get it, then try to space them out. Now I know that space considerations don't always work that way. For example, my zucchinis are all back here like I just showed you, as well as my yellow squash, and that is simply because this is the biggest raised bed I have. I don't want to have something overgrown in a different bed, but for that practical reason, I just put them all here, and I'm going to try to control as much disease and pests from spreading. But for the most part, I do try to make sure that everything is spread out so that, you know, you get some of those beneficial qualities from the other plants around it, you know, that maybe can prevent those type of pests that one type of plant is prone to getting. Alright, so in this side of the same raised bed, nothing is growing yet. I did plant some okra. Now I did see this little guy pop up this morning, so I'm not sure if that's what that is. I've never grown okra before, but it looks like not a weed, so hopefully that's what that is. I am getting quite a few of these mushroom things that pop up, so I just kind of pluck them out and toss them somewhere else. And then right next to this raised bed, we have some oregano, which I use a lot for cooking and making sauce. And then over here are going to be scallions. So these have not come up yet, but I love using scallions, so I planted out a bunch of them. And as you can see, we do have some cucumbers already starting to trellis here. Now these are the Mexican sour gherkins, which is why the leaves are so tiny. I have grown cucumbers before. I've never grown this variety, so I was really excited to see that they are actually quite tiny, but they are really cute. Now I'm really excited. One of them, actually, I planted this one out here, right? So I do square foot gardening, 1, 2, 3, 4 square feet. This one did not make it. I think I'll probably go ahead and plant out another seed there. I'm not going to start it in the greenhouse and just transplant it. I will just probably plant that out directly. But you can see that these are making their way up the trellis. They are doing pretty well. No real issues so far, and they are growing tons of new little tendrils, and then just wrapping themselves all around the trellis and climbing themselves up. Now I have these on this side of the box, and then I have some peppers in between. These are Cayenne Peppers, which also seem to be doing pretty well. At first they were a little bit yellow, but they seem to have evened themselves out. I've been trying to monitor a little bit more the amount that I water them. And then on the other side, I have some more cucumbers, and these are actually doing really well. You can see that they're kind of like mixing themselves together. These ones, I think we're getting some leaf miners too. You can see that damage there. Leaf miners don't actually kill the fruit, but they kill the leaves, and then the leaves end up with all these white marks and then turning brown and dying off. So that's what leaf miners do. It's always a challenge to get rid of them, but using neem oil seems to work pretty well for the most part. Now for these raised beds here, I'm going to try to back up so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I have my cucumbers on this side growing up this trellis. I have more cucumbers on that side growing up that trellis. What will eventually happen is these cucumbers will reach the top of this trellis, those ones will reach the top of that trellis, and then there is actually, I'm not tall enough really, but there's more trellis on this side, so, or on the top of it, I mean. So then they will kind of like cross in the middle, and then the ones that were growing on here will come across and down, and the ones that were coming here will go across and down that side. And then I have my thyme plant over here. Now this is actually getting pretty tall for thyme. Every once in a while I do take some cuttings off of this and propagate more out, and what I do with this, because it is getting really tall, and it's still not growing in this side, what I'll do is I'll take the longer sides of this and I'll kind of bury them in the soil, sticking up just like that, and then they do grow more roots from whatever part is touching the soil. So I will come in here later on today likely, and then just kind of start pushing these down into the soil, so they propagate themselves within the same little container that I have here. In our next box, we have some eggplant. Now, this eggplant is probably the thing that's not doing the best in the garden. You can see it is getting a little yellow here. Now, I'm really not sure what was going on with this eggplant. As you can see, it is quite yellow. However, the newer leaves, the little baby leaves that are coming up, are much more green. So whatever was going on with it, I'm hoping stopped to do whatever it was doing. I don't know if it was getting a lot of water at first, which is a very big possibility because when we put them in, it was right before we went on vacation, and then they were getting overwatered by the drip system quite a bit, which I guess is better than them dying out completely. But as you can see, the new leaves in here are quite green. And then we do have some leaf miner damage in here. As you can see, they have been killing off these leaves over here. However, it is still growing new little baby leaves. I was trying to get in much closer to show you guys, but the camera does not like that angle. It is not focusing. All right, and then we have Lesia Peppers in here. Now these ones started out with the same issue, some yellowing. You can see down here we have a little bit more of yellow leaves, but as the leaves have started to grow out, oh, there you go, they have gotten considerably more green, which is a good sign. That is exactly what I wanted when you're trying to fix the problem of overwatering. So they are doing pretty well. And then on the other side of this bed, we have more eggplant. As you can see, you have the same problem. The outer leaves are a little bit more yellow, but these ones are way more green, and this one is actually doing quite well. This one is mostly green over here, and it's growing a new little leaf right there in the middle. And then you have, I don't know if you noticed, this is a drip line. So each of these have their little drip emitter. One right there, there's one right there. They're spaced every 6 inches. And then in the middle of all the boxes, you have this little sprinkler system thing, which you can turn on and off just for, you know, whatever's in there to get watered as well. Okay, now I have this basil plant that, as you can see, is not doing too well. It is from last season. I just never took it out, mostly because it was growing these little seed pods, which I love to save basil from. So I'm kind of just waiting for these to dry up. They don't really look like they're doing too well anymore, so any day now, but then again, I've been saying that for the past 3 months. So whenever these drop, then I will be able to collect my basil seeds again. Here are my grape tomatoes, the same grape tomatoes I plant out every season. I have 4 in here. I have 1, 2, and then this one is 1, and then that one over here. Now these are doing extraordinarily well, and as you can see, they even have some little flower blossoms coming out very shortly here, but they are growing really, really, really fast. So if anyone ever wants a great smaller tomato, I would definitely recommend Grape Tomatoes. They definitely do the best in my garden every year. We had, I don't know, 50 pounds of grape tomatoes last season, and that was really just from September until December. The only reason I ripped them up is because they were starting to get more brown, and I wanted the leaves to be more healthy and green and just, you know, have a fresh start. So these are doing really well. These usually get infected with leaf miners really, really bad, but I did catch it early, and I actually took neem oil. Now, usually what I do is I'll come in early in the morning and I'll take neem oil. Okay, so side note, usually what you do with neem oil, right, and this is neem oil if you're not familiar, I think it's like $6 or $7. I got this one at Home Depot. You can get it at Lowe's, Home Depot, Tractor Supply I think has it. It comes in like a tiny little bottle like this. It is very concentrated. So what you do is you take a little bit of it. I think there's instructions somewhere on the back or whatever for how much you're actually supposed to dilute. Really, I don't usually go by the instructions. I just take maybe a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, something like that. Really, I just pour it in the spray bottle, and then I mix the rest of that with water, right? I just take the faucet, right, the hose, whatever, fill the rest of the spray bottle, and then I will spray all of my plants. Now, there's a very important rule when you're doing this. You cannot do it when it's 100 degrees outside. Do not do it in the middle of the day, because this is oil, right? Neem oil. It will burn your plants. So I have made this mistake before when I was a beginner gardener years and years ago. I took neem oil and I sprayed it all over my plants in the middle of the day, and then it wasn't working, so then I sprayed it again and again and again, and all my plants just fried. Do not do that. You do not want to fry your plants, so make sure it is very early in the morning or late at night. Usually after the sun goes down is when I like to do it. However, last season I was doing a little bit of research because I was using tons of neem oil, and for whatever reason it didn't seem like it was working. So what I did was I took that same bottle of, water and neem oil mix, right? Just a little bit of neem oil. And I read this online somewhere. I wish I could remember where I read it. And I really did think about this before I ended up doing it, because it was so out of the ordinary from anything I'd heard before. But what I did was I took that same spray, concoction, whatever, and instead of spraying the leaves of the plant, I took the whole thing and I just poured it into the soil in the roots, right? So in the base of the plant, I poured it around and let the roots soak it up. And I wasn't sure if that was going to work or not. So at first I only did it with 2 grape tomato plants. Just make sure, if those 2 die, then it's not going to be a total loss, just as an experiment. I did it with those 2, and a few days later I came back and checked, and it didn't kill the plant, right? At the very least, nothing was dead, nothing had fried. So then I did it to the rest of them, and it seemed to work. I do still get leaf miners, but last season wasn't nearly as bad. I didn't have to spray too much after that. So I was just mixing it and pouring it into the base of the plant where the roots are. This season, I actually went through and I did it not right after I transplanted, but maybe a week after I transplanted. I went and I did the same thing because I was noticing a lot of leaf miners on there already on the tomato plants. This one here, which I just showed you, where am I? Oop. Here, these ones, which I just showed you, these ones actually had a lot of leaf miner damage starting around the lower leaves. So I went and I did that, and there is no leaf miner damage on the newer leaves at all. It has been about a week, 2 weeks or so since I did that. So far so good. I'm not telling you to do that. Do not listen to me if you don't want to. I'm not responsible for killing your plants. However, that is what I have done, and it works pretty well. So that's what I'm going to continue doing. Okay, enough of my public service announcement. Now, in the middle of this same bed, we have parsley. So basically what I did with the parsley is I just direct sowed, I think it's Italian flat leaf parsley, and then the moss curly parsley from Baker Creek. I just took those 2, and I think there's half and half, but they might just all be mixed in. They kind of all look the same right now because they are just tiny little seedlings. But they will grow into this giant bush of parsley, which is exactly what happened last season. And funny enough, I ripped out all of my parsley from last season, and all of it came back in the same spot, which is over here. There's a lot more green in that box. There's tomatoes, but it's tons of parsley that just came back up, and I just left it. Can't ever have too much parsley. And then here you can see more grape tomatoes. Now these, the way that they work is they are going underneath here, right? So you see the trellis, they kind of start off here and go underneath, and they will trellis all the way up, and the same thing, they will cross on the side and meet in the middle up here. Now we are at the beginning of the garden. As you can see here, I took you on that box and all the way down this line, ending with my rosemary. Now this I actually propagated from one of my other rosemary plants before I moved up here, and this is currently about 6 or 7 months old. I think it was probably in September when I planted this out, and now as you can see, it is kind of like a little rosemary bush here, and there are 2 of them, so I'm really happy with that because I used tons of rosemary. In the box on the other side of the garden here, these are going to be beans. Now they have not sprouted yet. I planted them out about 2 days ago, so I have still been waiting for them to sprout, but it'll probably be a couple more days. Here is my kale. This is, I think it's red leaf kale or rugged red leaf kale or something like that from Baker Creek. And on the other side I have more beans. Now these are zebra beans. The ones over here are Tanya's pink potted pole beans. So they all have their drip irrigation line in place, the little sprinkler head over here. And then there's actually another sprinkler head that was here before any of this garden was here, so usually that one doesn't go off. That's like the one for the lawn, which we don't really turn on because obviously we have no lawn here. So this kale, actually, when I was sowing the seeds, I don't know if I dropped them or the wind took them or whatever, but as you can see, there is some more kale over here growing through the rocks. I will probably leave that for a little bit just because it's more food and it's really not taking up too much of the pathway here. I know that Alan does not like to have things disorganized, so if he notices it, he will likely come and rip it up, so that might not be here for long. but usually whatever volunteer plants volunteer themselves in my garden, I just kind of leave unless they are going to be invasive, or if they're going to choke out another plant, then obviously I remove them. But for the most part, you know, this kale is not doing any harm, so it is going to stay for now. So then over here we have some lemon thyme. Now this lemon thyme has been in the garden for quite a while. It was getting a little bit yellow with the frost, and some of the stuff was kind of drying out here, the branches and all that. But it seems to be doing fairly well. The temperature has warmed back up a bit, so it has been doing really, really well. And then over here we have orange peach tomatoes. Now this is the very first time that I am growing orange peach tomatoes, so I'm really excited. As you can see, we don't have too much leaf minor damage. We do have some back here, but since I added that neem oil into the roots, it seems to have stopped a lot of it. You can see down here on the lower leaves, definitely. Usually what I do when the plants get a little bit bigger is, especially for tomatoes, I'll come in here and remove whatever's on the lower leaves so it can't touch the floor and get that disease or pest or whatever. Now over here is parsley. We have tons and tons of parsley from last season. There was all this parsley covering this entire bed. Now I ripped up everything that was in here. I ripped up all the parsley, and then a couple weeks later I realized there were little baby parsley coming back up. The same thing, we have Italian flat leaf, and then we have some curled, I think it's moss parsley, both from Baker Creek. But I just decided that they are going to stay. They don't really take up too many nutrients, so the tomatoes can live harmoniously with them. And of course, I get more parsley. You can see the drip line, and then we have some Genevieve's basil. This is basil that I actually seed saved from my plants last season. There was another one that was just like this one over here. I had a few of them in pots, and I just took and I seed saved those ones, and all of the seeds went in here. It's not that many seeds, for the simple reason that I actually ended up dropping them on the way to plant them out. The baggie opened up or something and they went everywhere. So there's not too many of them, but really I don't use that much basil, so I'm happy with that amount. And then maybe later on I'll go and put some more around if need be, but I probably won't need it. And then the same thing over here. Again, I have my orange peach tomatoes. Over here will be chives. Now I am going to be harvesting garlic chives hopefully this season. It doesn't look like anything is popping its head up yet, but hopefully soon. And then over on this side we have more beans. Now these are going to be, if I can remember correctly, so these are going to be Marvel of Venice pole beans. So these are going to be trellising all the way up and across the entire raised bed as well. In here I have arugula. I didn't plant out too much arugula this time simply because I didn't have the space, but what I likely will do if I need more arugula is I'll just plant out more in a pot on the patio or in between, you know, the rocks here or something like these pots are here. But that seems to be enough arugula for right now. And then on this side I have loofah. Now I've never grown loofah, so I'm not exactly sure how it's going to grow, but I've heard that it grows up the trellis as well and gets rather tall. So I am a little bit worried about the pole beans and the loofah kind of meeting here in the middle. I guess we will find out how that works, but that is the amount of trellis space I have dedicated to it, so it's gonna stay there. Over here, this is another thyme plant. Now this is German thyme. This was propagated from one of my previous plants, and then on this side is going to be more scallions. Here I ended up planting out Cherokee Wax Beans, which still have not poked their way up yet. However, you can tell here, these are not Cherokee Wax Beans. These are actually ground cherry, little baby seedlings that are coming up, and there has been a ton of little ground cherry seedlings that keep coming up. I just take them and kind of pull them out. I love ground cherries, and this is actually where the ground cherries were growing last season, which is why there's a whole bunch of volunteer plants here. However, ground cherries kind of like will take over the entire thing and sprawl all over everything, so I do not want ground cherries when I am planting out so densely my beans. This will be full of Cherokee Wax Beans. Here's my Swiss chard. The Swiss chard that I transplanted, which is what you can see here, actually picked up. It was dying and yellow and all of that at the beginning from overwatering, of course, when we went on vacation, but it seems to be picking up really, really well here. You can see a little bit of damage probably from the frost, but other than that, it's doing really well. And then if you saw my last video on planting out my vegetable seeds again, direct sowing seeds, I went through and I filled in the holes, right? So you can see it's kind of like spotty. So I just took some more Swiss chard seedlings, or sorry, I took my Swiss chard seeds and I just planted them in where there were gaps. On this side, I will be harvesting hopefully tons of jade bush beans. I did plant out pretty densely here. I think it's at 9 per square foot, and there's, as I think you can still see the lines a little bit, there's one line there, one line here, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 quadrants, and there's 9 per square foot, so 36 bean plants total. Now, my spearmint plant is actually doing pretty well despite Milo using it as a target for his daily business quite on the regular, and you can hear him crying in the background. You can tell there's a lot of damage to this part of the plant, and some of those leaves as well. However, it is growing a lot of new leaves. I was originally going to rip the whole thing up, but as the temperature warmed up, it decided it was just going to take right off. And so that's, you know, I'm just going to leave it for now. Oh, and the irrigation system just came on. I just heard the sprinkler system come on. I don't know if you can see it on camera or not, and I'm trying not to get the camera wet either, but you can see the drip lines just started, and then I'm actually getting wet over here, but you can see that's getting the kale all watered as well. Alright, so that pretty much wraps it up for our April garden tour. Hopefully things will start popping up their little heads as the temperatures get warmer and the days go on. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really enjoy sharing garden tours with you. If you want to see previous garden tours, you can find the entire list of all the garden tours I've done so far, starting with January of this year. I do one every month. I will leave them in the description box below. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more urban gardening, chicken videos, homesteading videos, all of that good stuff. I will see you in the next one. Bye!